I woke up in the morning, everything started spinning, and it's this violent, the room goes like a spiral into space. You know, you feel like you're flying off the bed. I knew immediately what it was because this is my job.
Schwindel kann durch eine Funktionsstörung des Innenohres oder dessen Verbindungen mit Schaltzentralen im Gehirn hervorgerufen werden. Durch eine gezielte neurologische Untersuchung kann die Störung lokalisiert werden. Je nach Befund kann die Behandlung sofort erfolgen oder, falls erforderlich, eine weitergehende Abklärung eingeleitet werden. Die häufigste Ursache ist der Lagerungsschwindel. Dieser entsteht durch Ablagerungen in einem der 3 Bogengänge im Innenohr. Dies führt dazu, dass bei jedem Lagewechsel, meistens beim Hinlegen, Aufsitzen und beim Rückwärtsneigen des Kopfes, kurze Attacken von Drehschwindel auftreten. Die Untersuchung zielt darauf ab, den betroffenen Bogengang zu identifizieren. Dabei wird der Patient in verschiedene, auch schwindelauslösende Positionen gelagert. Während und unmittelbar nach dem Positionswechsel werden die Augen mit der Frenzelbrille untersucht. Mit dieser Brille können unwillkürliche Augenbewegungen besser demaskiert werden. Kann die Diagnose eines Lagerungsschwindels gestellt werden, so erfolgt die Behandlung, ein sogenanntes Repositionsmanöver, in der gleichen Sitzung. Dafür wird der Patient wieder auf das Ohr, welches betroffen ist, gelagert. Der Kopf muss etwas tiefer als der Oberkörper sein. Anschließend wird der Kopf unter regelmäßigem Beklopfen des Knochens hinter dem betroffenen Ohr schrittweise zur anderen Seite gedreht. Danach wird der Patient wieder aufgesetzt. Eine Kontrolllagerung zeigt, ob das Repositionsmanöver erfolgreich war. Wenn nötig, kann dieses wiederholt werden. Bei erfolgreicher Reposition treten die Schwindelbeschwerden in den meisten Fällen nicht mehr auf.
So we have the cochlea, the hearing part of the ear, and then we have the semicircular canals, the spinning sensors. So what happens is the particles that are in the utricle can sometimes get into this opening. When you lie down in bed at night, the particles can just fall in by gravity, and then when you sit up in the morning, they get all the way down here to the bottom of the ear. But when the particles build up to a big enough clump that they form a piston in the canal, then when you move your head like this, the particles move a sensor in this structure, and you feel that as spinning. And I knew that the particles were here, located in this ring. And so I had to figure out how to get them out. So I made a little model with my hands like this, and I twisted and turned it, figuring out a new way to do it. And I realized if I went forward, I could get the particles out. I made up the half somersault, did it, came up, and it was gone.
Video 1 shows the Dix-Hall-Pike maneuver and the typical pattern of nystagmus in benign paroxysmal positional vertigo involving the right posterior semicircular canal. With the patient upright, the head is turned to the right side about 45 degrees. Then the patient is moved from the sitting to the supine head-hanging position with the head about 20 degrees below the end of the examination table. During this maneuver, the orientation of the right posterior semicircular canal lies in the sagittal plane, and the free-floating otolithic debris in the posterior canal move down and away from the ampulla. The resulting nystagmus is upbeating and torsional, with the upper poles of both eyes beating toward the lowermost right ear.
Look over here. See, it's essentially downward beating. So, okay, over here. Now, when does she get reversed? Up you come again, looking straight ahead at the wall in front of you. The wall in front. There she goes the other way. Eyes open, eyes open, eyes open. You see how it reversed the other way. That's the problem, huh? Head over this way. Down we go on the left again. Eyes open, looking at my finger. Turn your head this way. Look at my finger. So she's getting it every time. Not as bad this time. Look at my finger. So there is some habituation, you see. Better every time you do it.
Video 2 shows a positional geotropic beating toward the ground nystagmus during the supine roll test in benign paroxysmal positional vertigo of the right horizontal semicircular canal. The patient is moved from the sitting to the supine position and then the head turned to the left ear down position. As the free-floating otolithic debris moves away from the cupula of the right horizontal canal, a left-beating geotropic nystagmus develops. Next, turning the head to the right ear down position, a slightly stronger right-beating geotropic nystagmus develops as the otolithic debris migrates toward the cupula of the right horizontal canal. Then, again turning the head to the left ear down position, a left-beating nystagmus develops as the otolithic debris migrates away from the cupula of the right horizontal canal. The nystagmus is slightly stronger when beating to the right, pointing to the involved right horizontal canal.
Guardi a destra, centro, sinistra, centro. Guardi al centro, c'è niente. Niente, vero?
No.
Eccolo. Vai.
Veloce o no?
È normale, va abbastanza, ecco, brava, così. Guardi al centro.
Sì, non parola.
Video 3 shows a positional apogeotropic beating away from the ground nystagmus during the supine roll test in benign paroxysmal positional vertigo of the right horizontal semicircular canal. The patient is moved from the sitting to the supine position, and then the head turned to the left ear down position. This elicits a deflection of the right horizontal canal cupula due to otolithic debris near, or in this case, attached to the cupula. The evoked response is a strong right beating, apogeotropic nystagmus. Then turning the head to the right ear down position induces deflection of the right horizontal canal cupula in the opposite direction and a subsequent left beating, apogeotropic nystagmus. Finally, the head is turned again to the left ear down position and again elicits a right beating nystagmus. The right beating nystagmus is more intense than the left beating nystagmus, pointing to the involved canal on the right side.
Guardi al centro, bravo. Guardi al centro, bravo. C'è?
Non lo vedo da qui, professore.
Rapido.
Ecco, ora comincia.
Apra gli occhi, bravo.
Come va?
Ora è fermo. Ora ci rompirà al contrario.
This quick guide video provides an overview of OVEMP testing. It is supported by 4 further quick guide videos which cover OVEMP testing in more detail. The ocular vestibular evoked myogenic potential, otherwise known as the OVEMP, is an evoked potential measured from the inferior oblique muscle and is used to assess the vestibular system. Despite there still being debate about its exact origin, it is thought to be largely dependent on the utricle and the integrity of the superior vestibular nerve. The OVEMP can be elicited by either an acoustic, vibratory, or galvanic stimulus. Clinically, the most common method of recording the OVEMP is through using an acoustic stimulus, such as a 222 tone burst, at a loud intensity, usually around 95 dB NHL. The response is then recorded using surface electrodes at 4 sites on the face. The most common electrode montage is to measure from the chin, forehead, and underneath each eye. Note, the OVEMP is largest when recorded contralaterally, so this is why the right reference electrode is placed underneath the left eye. Just like the CVEMP, the OVEMP requires the active participation of the patient. To record the response, the subject should be seated or in a reclined position and is instructed to maintain an upwards gaze at 35 degrees for the duration of the recording. The OVEMP response is well documented and is said to be represented by 2 distinct peaks. N1 occurring at approximately 10 milliseconds, and P1 occurring at approximately 15 milliseconds. The amplitude, latency, and threshold can all be measured and interpreted with the OVEMP. However, the most robust parameter to analyze is the amplitude ratio between right and left ears. It has been documented that a difference of 33% is an indication of dysfunction. Through combining the OVEMP with traditional tests of vestibular function, clinicians can use the information from this test to assist in the diagnosis of disorders such as superior semicircular canal dehiscence, Meniere's disease, as well as disorders of the superior vestibular nerve. This concludes this introductory quick guide video on OVEMP testing. This quick guide video provides an overview of how to analyze an OVEMP recording. Here is an example of a real-life recording of an OVEMP. In this example, we begin stimulating the left ear at 100 dB NHL. Notice that within very few sweeps, we are able to obtain a large OVEMP response which is distinguishable from the background noise. In clinical situations, we typically stop when a clear response has been recorded. It is always recommended to repeat the OVEMP to ensure repeatability. After the test has been completed in the left ear, we continue and stimulate the right ear. Now it is time to mark the waveforms. In a healthy individual with an intact vestibular system, the N1 will occur around 10 milliseconds, and the P1 will occur at around 15 milliseconds. It is important to mark both the left and right waveforms. Waveforms can be marked from the record sheet or from the edit sheet. From the edit sheet, ensure you have the waveform which you wish to be marked selected. Next, select the waveform mark you wish to plot, and then move the mouse over the selected waveform. A left click on the mouse marks the waveform. Lastly, the waveforms should be paired together. With one waveform selected, right-click the waveform handle of the opposite ear and select Set as VEMP Partner. These selected waveforms will then be used in the asymmetry calculation. As OVEMP is a contraction of the muscle which takes place after stimuli onset, EMG scaling is not relevant for the OVEMP test. This concludes this quick guide video on analyzing the OVEMP response. This quick guide video provides an overview of CVEMP testing. It is supported by 4 further quick guide videos which cover CVEMP testing in more detail. The term CVEMP stands for Cervical Vestibular Evoked Myogenic Potential. It is an evoked potential measured from the sternocleidomastoid muscle and is used clinically to assess the vestibular system. The CVEMP pathway is well documented, and it is believed that the CVEMP tests the integrity of the saccule as well as the inferior vestibular nerve. The CVEMP can be elicited by either an acoustic, vibratory, or galvanic stimulus. Clinically, the most common method of recording the CVEMP is through using an acoustic stimulus such as a 212 or 222 tone burst at a loud intensity, usually around 95 dB NHL. The response is then recorded using surface electrodes at 4 sites on the head and neck. The most common electrode montage is to record from the clavicular joint, forehead, and each sternocleidomastoid muscle. In order to record a C-vemp, it is important to maintain a contracted sternocleidomastoid muscle. The patient is instructed to turn their head to either the left or the right, depending on which side is stimulated. The patient can then monitor their muscle contraction visually by using a patient EMG monitor or audibly by using an EMG monitor tone. The C-vemp response is well documented and is said to be represented by 2 distinct peaks, P1 occurring at approximately 13 milliseconds and N1 occurring at approximately 23 milliseconds. The latency of these waveforms is of course dependent on the design of the stimulus chosen to elicit the C-vemp. Furthermore, it is recommended to use EMG scaling to ensure even muscle contraction. The amplitude, latency, and threshold can all be measured and interpreted with the C-vemp. However, the most robust parameter to analyze is the amplitude ratio between right and left ears. It has been documented that a difference of 36% is indicative of dysfunction. Through combining the C-vemp with traditional tests of vestibular function, clinicians can use the information from this test to assist in the diagnosis of disorders such as superior semicircular canal dehiscence, saccular dysfunction, as well as disorders of the inferior vestibular nerve. This concludes this quick guide video on C-vemp testing.
Video 4 shows Epley's canalith repositioning maneuver for the treatment of benign paroxysmal positional vertigo involving the right posterior semicircular canal. The patient is first moved into the right ear down position with the Dix-Hallpike maneuver. After the induced nystagmus subsides, the head is turned 90 degrees toward the unaffected left side and the otolithic debris moves further toward the common crus. Any induced nystagmus is in the same direction as that evoked initially during the Dix-Hallpike maneuver. The head and trunk are then turned another 90 degrees in the same direction, and the otolithic debris migrates again in the same direction, sometimes producing a brief nystagmus. Finally, the patient is moved to the sitting position, and the otolithic debris falls out of the canals into the utricle through the common crus. Each position should be maintained at least 30 seconds, or until the induced nystagmus and vertigo resolve. Video 5 shows Simon's repositioning maneuver for the treatment of benign paroxysmal positional vertigo involving the right posterior semicircular canal. The patient is first moved to the right side-lying position with the head pointed upwards away from the involved side. After the induced nystagmus subsides, the patient is rapidly taken to the opposite side-lying position through upright without a pause and a rapid cartwheel-like maneuver. The head should stay turned toward the left unaffected side throughout the maneuver. The otolithic debris continues to move toward the common crus, and any induced nystagmus is in the same direction as that in the initial side-lying position. Finally, the patient is brought upright and the head is turned to the neutral position. The otolithic debris falls into the utricle through the common crus, and the direction of any evoked nystagmus should be the same as that observed in the previous positions. Each position should be maintained for at least 1 or 2 minutes, or until the induced nystagmus and vertigo resolve. Video 6 shows the barbecue maneuver for the treatment of geotropic benign paroxysmal positional vertigo involving the right horizontal semicircular canal. The patient is first placed in the supine position and then the head turned toward the right involved ear, producing a right beating geotropic nystagmus. The head is then turned in 90-degree steps for a total of 270 degrees toward the unaffected side. The patient then resumes the sitting position. The otolithic debris in the right horizontal canal moves away from the cupula and then finally enters the utricle. During each 90-degree step to the unaffected side, the induced nystagmus should be to the left as the otolithic debris migrates. Each position should be maintained at least 30 seconds to 1 minute or until the induced nystagmus and vertigo resolve. Video 7 shows the Guffoni maneuver for the treatment of geotropic benign paroxysmal positional vertigo involving the right horizontal semicircular canal. From the sitting position, the patient lies down on the unaffected left side. In the sitting position, the otolithic debris is located in the dependent posterior part of the long arm of the right horizontal canal. Lying down on the unaffected left side causes the particles to move more posteriorly in the right horizontal canal, and this migration produces a nystagmus beating to the left toward the ground. When the head is turned even farther toward the ground, the particles again move toward the most posterior part of the long arm and fall into the utricle, again producing a left beating nystagmus. Then the patient is returned to the upright position. Each position is maintained for 2 minutes. Video 8 shows Guffoni's maneuver for treatment of apogeotropic benign paroxysmal positional vertigo involving the right horizontal semicircular canal. From the sitting position, the patient lies down on the affected right side. In the sitting position, the otolithic debris is attached to the cupula or located in the anterior part of the long arm of the right horizontal canal. Lying down on the right side causes the particles to move toward the posterior part of the long arm of the horizontal canal. This migration produces nystagmus beating to the left away from the ground. In the side-lying position, the head is then rotated upwards, pointing toward the ceiling. The particles then move farther posteriorly in the canal and then fall into the utricle, causing nystagmus beating to the left unaffected side. Then the patient is returned to the upright position. Each position is maintained for 2 minutes.
Breathe slowly as you maintain your pose. Your posture's fantastic. Perfect. Feel your waist stretching. Great job. Keep it up.
Keep breathing even as you tighten your muscles. Practicing every day will help tone your body. Don't hold your breath, it will raise your blood pressure.
Try to keep your center of gravity within the yellow area. Practicing every day will help tone your body. 1, 2.
we have the cochlea, the hearing part of the ear, and then we have the semicircular canals, the spinning sensors. So what happens is the particles that are in the utricle can sometimes get into this opening. When you lie down in bed at night, the particles can just fall in by gravity, and then when you sit up in the morning, they get all the way down here to the bottom of the ear. But when the particles build up to a big enough clump that they form a piston in the canal, then when you move your head like this, the particles move a sensor in this structure, and you feel that as spinning. And I knew that the particles were here, located in this ring. And so I had to figure out how to get them out. So I made a little model with my hands like this, and I twisted and turned it, figuring out a new way to do it. And I realized if I went forward, I could get the particles out. I made up the half somersault, did it, came up, and it was gone. So you start on your knees, and you tip your head straight up to look at the ceiling. And you hold that position for a few seconds. You'll usually feel a little bit of a spinning when you do that. That helps start the particles moving. Then you put your head completely upside down, tucking your chin a little bit so your head isn't perfectly vertical. It's actually tucked under slightly towards your knees. So during that time, you turn your head towards your right elbow if you're going to treat the right ear. If you're treating the left ear, you turn the head to face your left elbow. The side that you get the most dizzy when you're lying down and rolling over. So if you roll over to your right, and that makes the spin, and you roll to your left and it goes away or it's not as bad, then you have it in your right ear. In that position, the particles will start to move and you will feel the spinning. You wait for all the spinning to stop, or you can count to 30, and then very quickly raise your head to back level. So your head and your back are on the same level, but you're keeping your head turned at that 45-degree angle. Then you again wait for the spinning to stop, 15 to 30 seconds, and then you bring your head fully upright so that you end up kneeling again. And in that position, the particles should leave the ear. But sometimes it takes 4 or 5 repetitions. The safest thing is to repeat it with 15-minute breaks between each attempt, because that allows the particles to fully settle out away from the opening.